Ladies and gentlemen, gamers, I present to you the pinnacle of aerospace engineering and design, the best of British, the F3 Tornado! Okay, so before we start discussing how I feel about this jet, my observations with it, we'll just quickly go over the specs, the loadout, etc. So your loadout, once you've got everything researched, you've got your super temps, which are your radar missiles. They normally work reliably, anything less than about 6k. They're not no ERs, you don't want to be launching them any further than that. You also get 4 AIM-9Ls, which is nice. So you do have a lot of killing potential. I've got two separate loadouts, one for EC, you know, everybody's favourite type of map, and then one for the standard, which we all know they're not necessarily standard anymore, they're still stupidly big as well. But exactly the same except for the drop tanks. Set drop tanks on EC, especially if I'm playing solo, and I'll drop them halfway across the map, you know, even before you're 10 minutes into the battle. Top speed, it tops out, I think it's 1486, but if you have your wings outstretched, if you decide to change them halfway through a flight, they will rip at 932 kph, so you want to be careful with that because, yeah, bye. Let's do a basic drag test. The first one to reach 1200 kph on the deck. Now, I am aware this is not a precise measure, as the test flight maps differ for each nation. As you can see in this clip, in the Tornado and the F4, when we take off, we're going to have to do a sharp right turn to give ourselves the longest run for the test, whereas the MLD can just take off and go straight. Now, you cannot see the speed, as we have split screens in this clip, and the UI for the speed in game is in the top left. What I have done though is set markers for as soon as each jet reaches 1200 kph. Now the F3 Tornado accelerates the quickest, and it will be the first one to hit 1200 kilometers, with the MLD coming in second and the F4 last. The Tornado will top out at 1486, and it won't power past that, so it's not going to rip in a straight line if your wings are swept. So even though it is quick to accelerate to 1200, from 1200 though, it just struggles to accelerate any faster and takes an age to hit its top speed. Whereas the MLD, once that hits 1200, it just keeps powering through to its top speed till you end up where its wing rips at a point of 1492. The F4S tops out at 1307 and it won't power past that. So even though the Tornado does get to 1200 first, once you're at this point, the MLD will just catch you, and you know, it'll just catch up with you fast. The other two jets that I did test at this BR was the FGR that maxes out at 1359, and the Mirage F1C 200, well 2000, which maxes out at 1358. But if pushed, it will rip at 1480. All of these jets are with no loadout and 30 minutes of fuel. Next test, just basically 1200 kph again at 1000 feet, turning in a loop. Now I'm holding full elevator, trying to get the tightest loop I can here. As you can see, the Tornado kind of struggling. MLD a lot better, and the F4S just consistently blacking out. I really struggle to get a tight loop with that. However, full cards, the F4S is not experted. It's a full crew, but it's just not experted. But yeah, the Tornado significantly lacking. Is this jet as bad as everyone says it is then? Well, no. But at the same time, it's not particularly great either. So is it good? Well, yeah. But only in the same way that you may be the fastest fat kid, or you're the youngest guy in the retirement home. As another YouTuber put it, it's good, but everything else at this BR does what the Tornado does, but better. Except with the exception of belly flopping, it does that pretty well. I would like to point out that this is not going to be an instructional video on how to fly this thing or how you can do well in it. My experience in this game has shown that everybody approaches flying differently, apart from the basic foundations of ARB. And by that I mean people have different thought processes, different play styles, different levels of aggressiveness. Some people are patient while others not so much. People's attention span. All these characteristics affect how people play the same jet. For instance, somehow I can make the Tornado work a hell of a lot better than I can with the F-14B. Does that make the Tornado a better jet? Fuck no. It doesn't even come close. But for whatever reason, I can't make the F-14B work to the same level I can other jets. So I'm not going to be dictating to you how this should be played. I mean, you've got to do you at the end of the day. All I'm showing you is what I have noticed while playing a considerable amount of games in this jet so far. And my observations of this plane's capabilities and its limitations, of which there are fucking many. I guess we'll start with the pros because we can get that out of the way pretty quick because there's not that many of them. Your offensive capability is quite high. I mean, you have 8 missiles, 4 of those radar and 4 of them AIM-9Ls, which are still very good missiles at the moment, which allows you to deal out a lot of suffering and embarrassment to other players in better jets than what you're in. Survivability, I mean, you've got a vast amount of countermeasures. So you've got 176 flares and the same amount of chaff. So this allows you to flare for fun when missiles are being slung around the map like a dwarf at a bachelor's party. But this survivability is only when it comes to missiles. We'll address the other side of that in cons. You are quite fast for 11.3, at least low speed acceleration. As mentioned in the drag race test, you know, your top speed, however, yeah, not so much. At least getting to that top speed. And the final pro, I would say, is its reward level. And I don't mean RP or SL, but the satisfaction factor. I mean, doing well in this jet is like managing to pull the girl at the bar that all your mates are after and who's clearly out of your league. And then, at the end of it, finding out she was also sober to boot. I mean, you don't know how it happened, but hey, it did. And now you feel like Billy Big Balls. Now, however, the cons, also known as the come down. So, first, and the major one, is the flight model. I mean, everybody's commented on it. And as you saw in the intro to this video, this jet has 0 lift. You pull a manoeuvre like that and for whatever reason, when you level out, you just keep falling and pancake the ground. I mean, you can do that manoeuvre in pretty much any other jet and you will be fine. You will pull out of it. But the Tornado F3 has the ability to ignore the theory of flight altogether and just belly flop like a 6-year-old fat kid at the swimming pool. And this makes it very difficult to avoid radar missiles if you're at altitude. Because, for one, you cannot BBR in the Tornado with other jets. I mean, it's not something I do anyway. But you just don't have the manoeuvrability. And if you need to get on the deck to evade, you know, a radar sausage that's been flung at you, then you're probably going to slap the ground like a hose arse. And, you know, bear in mind, your radar missiles are pretty much slower and with less range than anyone else's, so you are going to have to get on that deck. And this same flight model will also mean you can forget dogfighting people in it. I mean, at least if you want to reliably win the fights. And that's the key word there, reliability. Just because you're winning 1 or 2, 3 dogfights, you're not going to be doing it consistently. To win a dogfight in that jet, you have to be fighting someone whose cat is probably sat on a keyboard, or a university who has a chimp playing for science at that time. But even with a chimp or the cat, you still have to get everything, and I mean everything, right, while they just have to get, you know, everything wrong. and that's the only when you're winning. I mean, there are vehicles in the Blue Water Fleet tech tree that have a smaller turning circle. And the only chance about turning someone is if the enemy have a fail squadron and they have brought a B-29 into top tier with them. I mean, and then, you know, you probably outturn that. Those people are absolute sausages. Another con, survivability. I know I said it was a pro, but that's with the flares. But with this, it's a con because people are going to see you as an easy kill because you are. So you tend to get focused, and if you have someone that's on your ass, then good luck trying to get them off. I mean, they'll be so far up your crack, they'll be able to taste what you had for breakfast. So with that in mind, good luck just trying to reverse someone. I mean, the only people you will be reversing in the tornado are the people who are still trying to lick their own eyeballs. Yeah, you know, for one, I mean, this thing doesn't turn. So it's easy for people to follow any move you may make whilst trying to make them overshoot. It's not like a nimble little aircraft like an F5 where you can do tight, intricate turns, you know, which trick the enemy into overshooting. Nah, you can see what the tornado is trying to do before the person flying it knows what he's going to do. So the only other option you've got is to air brake, which you really should be doing in jets. I mean, not ideally anyway. Yeah, I get sometimes you're going to need to, and sometimes it does work, but it shouldn't be like the default thing to go to. I mean, at least as I understand it anyway. And then, so, let's say you've air braked successfully, and they overshoot. Hey, well, you know, that's going to be short-lived, because they can instantly just fucking pull vertical, or just bank so tight that there's no way you can follow them. And now you've got no air brake. You know, now your air brake's out. You're slow as well as a fucking boat now, and then you're just going to get tanked. It's just... See, that's the sound of that guy's balls banging against your dreams. It's not happening. Now, earlier on I did say that this jet can be good, and honestly, it can. But there has to be certain criteria for that to be a thing. So, it's good when your team is doing well, and you've got free range to engage enemies that are just otherwise distracted. And you can just get in, clean up. It's nice. It's also good when you're squadded with a bunch of guys who know how to play, and they can do the heavy lifting, and you can just choose your targets without being molested. Because, hey, nobody likes being molested, right? Lastly, it's also good when the enemy team just leaves you alone. Like, you either get focused or sometimes they will leave you alone. That's nice, because again, you can just surprise people. But that's about it. Every other time you take this jet out, you have to try so hard in it. And for that reason, I wouldn't recommend this jet to anyone who is either new to the game or new to top tier. I mean, this jet is a thinker's jet. You have to know AirRB intimately to get this to work. Your decision making has to be on point. You have to have a sense of target prioritization, good awareness, excellent positioning, and be able to read how the battle is going. You know, and all of these I'm still learning myself, by the way, you know. So, you also have to find a balance of having an early impact on the game while not being too aggressive. As being too aggressive will just cause the enemy team to jump all over you. You know, and nobody wants to get jumps by multiple guys at once. Well, I don't know, maybe. I know a couple of people who might not like that, but I ain't a fan. You know, not for me. Cheers. So, if you have a new player and you have this jet unlocked, listen, just leave it alone for now. Learn the game in a more forgiving and stronger jet. You know, and once you start doing well, come back to this jet. Think of this jet like a difficulty level. You know, in single player games where you've got the choice of like easy, intermediate and veteran. I mean, this jet is definitely a veteran setting. But once you get there and you take it out, boy, it doesn't half become great fun. And on that note, I'll leave it there, as I'm sure you've all had enough of my mumbly voice. And if you have got this far, listen, instead of liking and subscribing and all that nonsense, go to the forums, right, and get Gaijin to remove fucking night battles, dust battles, sunset battles, whatever you want. Just do that instead. But yeah, thanks all for watching. You can catch me streaming most nights, in fact pretty much every night. Same name as the channel, and hopefully I'll see you there.